Right, to inject a bit of class in proceedings, let's talk football. Michael Meehan's on the line. Good morning to you, Michael.
Morning, Ger. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. We're trying to come back to earth after some
I don't know
some
where
weird
we go
stories.
Sticky Dicky, yeah. We'll see.
No such controversies in Gaelic football this weekend. Look, the performance of Galway in the league has been absolutely sensational so far, and I guess there's a natural concern is like, ooh, maybe we didn't necessarily feel that we were ready to reach a final like this, but the performance against Dublin was so good that they shouldn't really have anything to fear this weekend.
No, they've been super all year. Primary goal was always going to be stay in Division 1, and that happened pretty, within the first 3 games. And I suppose they were sort of, the pressure was off at that stage for them to see how far up the table they could finish, and then it just kept rolling for them. They've been really tight, solid at the back. They've kind of built on what Kevin Walsh has been instilling into them over the last number of years, and they've the meanest defence so far. The big thing is coming up to Croker, maybe in front of 50, 60,000. There's going to be a loud hill there, so that's going to present challenges in itself. But I think in a lot of ways that's where this Galway team want to be, and it's the type of team they're trying to build as a team that's ready for Croke Park with the speed they have around the pitch. So I think they'll embrace it. I hope they do, and they'll take the challenge to Dublin on Sunday.
No fear of a backlash from the Dubs. Obviously there's always a fear of the backlash from the Dubs.
There's always a fear. Yeah, there is. The game ended in the draw. Galway rescued it the last day, and there was a bit of physicality towards the end on a number of occasions. So yeah, I wouldn't say that the Dubs are too happy leaving Pearse Stadium the last day. Just they found it difficult for long stages to break Galway down in the first half. They were very, very patient, maybe knowing that with the win in the second half they were going to tag Galway back eventually. But I think Galway really taking the draw with the last kick of the game was just something for Galway, real positive out of the game. But for Dublin as well, I'd say it was an annoyance or an irritant. So I think it's whether it's a game they want right now, but I think it could be a big, big challenge for Dublin just to really go after Galway. Because in fairness to Galway, if they can bring their game and the physicality that they bring, they will challenge Dublin for in a lot of places. Maybe not for the full game, but for a certain length of time.
Was that physicality there in the team last year? You were obviously with the squad for the whole year last year. So did you see that? Like, have you seen this evolve over the last 3 or 4 seasons?
We've seen it. We have seen it last year and even the year before. In a couple of big games, maybe the 2 notable ones were the Mayo first round championship matches over the previous 2 seasons. There was huge physicality on both sides there, and Galway prevailed on both occasions. And at different times, maybe in the kind of final 2 years ago, maybe not so much last year when Roscommon overturned it. So it has been there in flashes, but I think this season of the league has been a constant for that. And I suppose credit to the training that they're doing and the intensity that they're working at. And I think Paddy Talley has come in and has been a fresh voice and hasn't changed much, but maybe if nothing else, he's helped raise the intensity levels that the lads are operating at. And I would say on that as well is, the lads coming into the Division 1, thinking of Division 1 during the winter there when they were back training, training earlier than probably the Kerrys and the Dublins and the Mayos, they really would have known that they had to step up and bring a higher level to their training, number one, to feed into their games at the weekends. And they did that, and I suppose it started working out for them. And obviously they're growing in confidence and they're starting to use a bigger panel as well. Kevin Walsh has tried out numerous lads over the last 2 rounds, so he's obviously creating an environment where they go back to training and the intensity levels are there, which augurs well for the Sunday match day.
Yeah, because like when you get promoted, there is always, I presume in every camp, this idea that we won't be pushed around by the big boys, we'll have our hard edge and stuff like that. But it really seems that this Galway team believes it and to a certain extent almost enjoys that element of stopping a team by whatever means necessary.
Yeah, of course, and because Galway had showed it, sporadically over the last number of seasons, that's probably made it easier for them to kind of, see, well, it's worked when we've been able to bring it to matches. So can we build it in as a constant every day we go out? Maybe in comparison to Kildare, who the other team who got promoted and things just didn't work their way, and they found several games, I suppose, albeit on losing narrowly, but they just weren't prepared for that step up. Galway with their their Connacht success a couple of years ago, that had hardened them up a little bit. And yeah, there's a few players there who are just they're a different player. They're the player that Galway were criticised for not having a number of years ago. Soft touch and so on. So Kevin Walsh, obviously, during his years has addressed that, and he's brought in these two lads just to kind of stamp that out.
That physicality, like, we haven't really seen that many teams try and put it up to Dublin, because there was just an assumption that, like, Dublin have that in their locker, so why would you take them on with it? But we have seen Mayo match them, and that's really it in recent years. Kerry tried it a little bit, but probably didn't actually have the physicality themselves over the course of a full 70 minutes. So it'll be really interesting to see Galway, with Dublin knowing this is coming, put it up to them and see what happens.
Yeah, I suppose there's a slight fear in that. Dublin knowing, brings a little bit of butterflies to the stomach, because they really are. If they turn up on Sunday and they want to show Galway what they're made of, and it could turn into a long afternoon. And I suppose we're not under any illusions, but Galway have shown the physicality so far. I'd hope they can bring it to Croke Park, in an important game for the 70 minutes, and that is if we can look back, this morning week and say Galway have done that, whether they've won or they've lost. I think that'll still be another step in their progression. I suppose what we don't want to see is Galway, getting bullied around the place on Sunday and just getting a hiding. I don't think it'll happen, but we certainly it would be a sour end to the league for them if that's the way things developed.
There was the bloodless loss against Kerry was that in Croker? Was it
last year? Yeah.
And there was a sense that they hadn't been as physical in that game as they were capable of. That almost there was a flatness about the challenge that they posed Kerry that day. And definitely over the last couple of years, because the expectations have been peaked with the Connacht performances, there's been some murmurings of discontent about Kevin Walsh. In retrospect, whoever was behind that was really not thinking properly, because we've seen clear progress year on year up to this point.
Yeah, I suppose it's very, a big loss or two, be it league or certainly championship. People will start talking and voicing opinions and looking for change no matter what, and that's across the board. But I think Kevin took his fair share of that over the years. But looking back at it now, I think people have had to kind of say, right, and it's probably the case not everyone in Galway 100% buys into the style of play that Galway are adopting. However, they cannot argue with the fact that it's allowing the team to flourish and improve and be very, very competitive against the top teams in the country, and getting a draw against Dublin, albeit in a home league game. There's not many teams who have done that over the past 3, 4, 5 years. So the progress has been made, and I suppose that just to kind of to bring that on a notch then is what we want to see, what Galway people want to see, is that being brought into the summer and just getting those gritty, hard fought performances in championship matches, and I suppose more specifically in the bigger championship matches.
Yeah, as Ger mentioned, that last Croke Park appearance against Kerry, there was obviously a rookie full-back put in on Donaghy that day, which was the main reason why Galway lost on the scoreline anyway, quite comfortably that day. And I think there was a sense in the county at the end of last season that things were okay. There was Division 1 football coming your way, and we can forgive that sort of, I guess, the errors that were made that day in Croke Park. Whereas now, do you think that with the style of play, there is less room for forgiveness if there is such a result coming down the tracks at them at some stage later this summer?
I don't, because the style of play hasn't changed an awful lot in the last few years. It's just getting highlighted more and more now because maybe obviously Galway have improved at it, but what they're trying to do broadly is very similar to what's been going on for a number of years. They've tweaked it, certainly, they've improved it, but there has been lots of occasions, under Kevin Walsh's reign, where Galway have tried to do something similar and maybe not to the same effect. So whether it means in the summer there'll be, if things didn't work out, that people will be looking, as I said earlier, people will always be looking for heads to roll. But I'd imagine that, the players themselves, and forgetting about Kevin Walsh and the county, the players themselves will want to kind of make strides into this championship, and maybe get into the Super 8s and see can they shake it up there. Because there's a lot of them there who have a lot of time played, they've put in hard years. Couple that with they've added in two or three good additions who played in the All-Ireland final against Dublin last year. They've come straight into the team at full back and a few different places, and they've made a difference. So sometimes the youthful brazenness and inexperience is something to behold in a team, and if they can kind of nurture that, it might be a lad like that who can spearhead that little bit of, do you know what, we're not just going to fold today against Kerry. We're going to take them on and test them. And I think, as I said, that's what we want to see. That's what the players want, and that's what the supporters want. Sunday then is a big part in that. What happens on Sunday? Galway obviously need to be very, very competitive and remain competitive. Absolutely win the game if they can, but if Dublin perform and have a strong team out and perform well, that's going to be very, very difficult to do. Stating the obvious, but what Galway need to do is be in that game for 70 minutes.
You mentioned the Super 8s. There's we still don't know what the impact of the Super 8s is going to have on the other counties, the ones who don't make it. But if you make it this year, it's a bunch of games in high summer, some at home in front of your home fans. There's a real opportunity for a new team to emerge and be one of the top tier teams, just by virtue of the fact that they're playing football for an extra couple of months together as a group at the best time of the year to be playing football. So, the window is there now for this Galway team to become the next Mayo or one of that top tier counties who can consistently be at the top of Division 1 and then also compete late into the summer.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's there. And, I think a lot of people in and outside of Galway would recognise that. There's been times in the past where there's been a similar window available to Galway teams, to kind of take that step up, maybe, over the last 10, 15 years, and it hasn't happened. So, there's a degree of caution maybe around the place as well. But you'd hope, you'd love it as a player, you'd love to be looking forward to the chance of Super 8s. Now, there's a bigger issue with that for maybe the counties who miss out. But the opportunity to get 3 big games, home, away in Croke Park, early in the season, vital, important games, within quick succession. That's all you want as a player is real serious games in the heights of summer. It's going to be big crowds. There's a great atmosphere around Galway at the minute, especially with the hurlers, and even on the back of that, the footballers themselves, I'm sure, have taken some motivation. That's just seen everything that's gone on in the county since the hurlers won the All Ireland last year. They want a piece of that too. So there has to be great desire amongst the group to look to get into the business end of the season.
When it comes to Dublin this weekend, is there almost a sense around Galway that you want Stephen Cluxton, you want Cian O'Sullivan to be playing? Because
No.
Clearly, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, that's your only real test of whether or not you're going to be able to beat Dublin at full strength, because there's no question at this stage. We have the evidence in front of us. When Stephen Cluxton is not playing, Dublin are a far inferior team.
Yeah, I'd be happy enough to see him on the bench, to be honest with you, Owen, but I don't expect that'll happen. No, Dublin are unique in that, who they can put out and what they can play. Maybe with the exception of who you've mentioned, there is very, very little between it. Stephen didn't play against Galway in Pearse Stadium, and possibly helped Galway's position that day. I think Owen Comerford was in goal, and he did quite well. He got his kickouts away as quick, but I think just the whole presence that Stephen brings to the game will change. And then when he compliments, or Croke Park compliments him so much. The kickouts the next day are going to be a real challenge for Galway, I feel, whether they really go high pressing on it or do they drop off and let Dublin claim them, because you know what happens if you're pressing Dublin but they get out through you. They're just going to penetrate and hurt you every time. So I'd be happier to see Dublin minus the few players. Dean Rock got a black card against Galway in the league early on, and he was a loss that day too. He's one of their main forwards. He's a target man as much as anything else this league. I've seen them go long to him a couple of times. Possibly might be something that could try this weekend. The one occasion when Galway looked vulnerable during the league this year was at the tail end of a game against Meehan. They had it won. They were maybe 6-7 points up, and Monaghan started banging in long ball, and they ended up getting a goal late on, and there was a little bit of confusion. So there might be the chance of that if Dublin can isolate the correct one-on-ones. We may see them go long. It's certainly something they've done a little bit more this year than in other seasons. So there's a point in that, I think, to bear in mind for the Galway full back line the next day.
Yeah, definitely. And like I mentioned Keane O'Sullivan there, but I think that's going to be a huge part of Sunday, because I think you can make some comparisons between this Galway team and where Donegal were at in 2014, and obviously what did Dublin do post 2014, and it was create Keane O'Sullivan as one of the great sweepers that we've seen in modern Gaelic football. So how can they deal with that? I mean, is there a possibility of getting Keane O'Sullivan into a situation where he has to become a man marker? And of course in the first half against Kerry and Croke Park a few weeks ago, he struggled in that regard.
He did, yeah, and I know the Dublin left him there longer than maybe a lot of people watching the game thought they would have, but maybe they're just looking to something further down the summer, you wouldn't know. Keane's best role is the role as you've described. I think he's still injured for this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. He picked up a shoulder injury, which will be a bonus. But dealing with that, I think, the sweeper or not, to my mind, Dublin are the best attacking outfit by far in the country. They dominate possession. They're most efficient with their possession. But what they are as well, they can be ultra defensive, and they can have as many players behind the ball as Galway do, or as Tyrone do, or as the other teams do, without doubt. And they're comfortable in that, fulfilling that role as well. So it's not just Keane O'Sullivan. They'll get everyone back. Clips in my mind from the weekend gone by is Dean Rock marking someone in the cornerback position in Croke Park at one stage. So, make no mistake, they're well able to flood the defence as much as any team out there. It's just they have the skill set and the players to really get up the pitch. And Keane O'Sullivan is part of that as well, to create the scores for the lads and the runners that they have. So, they're a formidable outfit. The idea of the sweeper itself, it's not going to be a huge thing. I know in the league, Sean Armstrong was inside. He was double marked. Galway had withdrawn, maybe 12, 13 players, so he was isolated a lot. To have any success, Galway are trying to release the runners up and get lads there a little bit earlier. That might suit them. Croke Park might suit them in that regard, because it's a bigger pitch. Sorry, not a bigger pitch. It's about the same size as Pearse Stadium, but it's a faster pitch. And it'll allow maybe the likes of Eamon Brannigan, Johnny Heaney to get up that pitch a little bit quicker to support Sean Armstrong or whoever might be inside.
One last thing. Dublin obviously do defend in numbers and they commit to the attack, and that kind of is the difference between them so far and most of the other teams who are trying to ape that defensive style haven't quite got the game flow sorted in their minds yet. But the other thing that they are is street smart / cynical, and obviously we're never allowed to say this about the Dubs, but it's true, and it's also something that the Galway lads have been talking about for about 6 months now, is that in Division 1 they're going to need to be street smart, to use their cuteness. How much of that is new, and how much of that was always there with them but it's actually being brought out more? Because Tally's getting a lot of the credit for that, but I can imagine that Kevin Walsh was no shrinking violet himself.
Exactly, yeah. That is a skill in itself, and it takes time to develop. It's not just, you can't just turn up and say, right, today I'm going to be cute as a fox, I'm going to pull in whatever drag, or I'm going to be cynical and slow the game down. It's not just a button that you flick. It's a skill that's developed over time, and that's probably what's happening with everyone, who employs that skill or uses that skill. So. Yeah, there was lots of it on show on both sides in the league game in Pearse Stadium. Towards the end of the game, Damien Comer was sat on for the last 90 seconds of the match, literally in front of a linesman, and the match was going on around him. So he obviously wasn't going to get involved in the play. Dublin must have identified him as maybe one of the main scoring threats towards the end of the game. So there'd be a lot more focus on it for the next game. There's more camera angles, more cameras in Croke Park. There'll be a bigger crowd, a bigger occasion, but it plays a role. It's not ideal. We don't like seeing it, but it's if the rules are there to be bent and broken or abused, and all these lads want to do is win, and you do everything in your power to do that, and that's unfortunately the nature of the game. Even the boys in cricket are struggling with it when it comes down to, if you're relying on a human level for lads to do the right thing, okay, they'll do it some of the times, but if they can eke out an advantage, I think they're going to chase it down. Yeah,
but it's clear Galway have got better at it. And let's park the moral question, because we would all much prefer a sport where that didn't happen. But we've all witnessed the All-Ireland final last year, where the best team in the country pulls everybody down when the ball's being kicked out, and they're the ones celebrating, and they don't care. They really don't care about anybody giving out about them. So, as a supporter of the county, it feels like you think anyway Galway got much better at playing that game, as gross as it might be, but the reality is that they're definitely better at it now.
Of course they are, yeah. Like it's just they have to be. Like, you won't survive. You won't. Every team that has won an All Ireland, and be it the Senior Football All Irelands over a number of years, they were and I would have played a lot against them in leagues, more not in All Irelands, but in leagues. You'd play against the Kerrys and the Tyrones and the Armaghs, and these lads were winning the All Irelands in the noughties. And they were horrible to play against. Like, they did everything to stop you from playing with it in and outside of the rules. And that's just, you got on with it. It made you a bit of prayer to try and figure out, how can I avoid this scenario developing to stay involved with the game. And like, Dublin are really good at that now, and it's another part of their game. If Galway want to succeed, they have to bring it in. They have to get good at it, as you said. And are they getting good at it? They probably are. Mayo are really, really smart. And it's not a coincidence that's the top teams are able to do that.
Yeah, Michael, good
no
stuff.
coincidence.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning.
Okay, lads. Bye bye.